What's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with ScoopDuck on 3. It is Thursday, July 18th, 2024, and we are back with another episode of the pod for you guys today, coming to you live on a couple of different locations. We are here on YouTube, the ScoopDuck on 3 YouTube channel, as well as my Facebook and Twitter/X accounts at mtorresports. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Sorry about the delay getting going here today on the live stream. Trying to coordinate with Justin, and he is having his air conditioning fixed. It looks like it's going to be quite hot out in his area today, out in Medford. So you got to prioritize keeping everyone cool in some extreme temperatures, but I'm coming to you from Long Beach, California, as usual, and we have an interesting episode of the podcast to get into today. And I say interesting because it's not always good news on the recruiting trail, and it wasn't good news for the Ducks on Wednesday as 5-star Florida cornerback DJ Pickett announced his commitment to the LSU Tigers, choosing Brian Kelly and the SEC program over the Oregon Ducks and the Miami Hurricanes. And that was a bit of a shocker, if you will, because Justin and I both had our picks on Oregon to land DJ Pickett, and the Tigers really weren't being talked about a whole lot in the final days and final hours, I guess you could say, of the recruitment. And a lot of the coverage had kind of gone towards Oregon versus Miami. I tried to mention LSU as a contender because that was one of his final 3 schools. He never eliminated LSU, but a lot of what we were hearing was that it was Oregon versus Miami for the number 1 cornerback in the country, but you can't win them all. And I put my prediction in for DJ Pickett to land at Oregon a little over a week ago, and I missed. So it's just what happens sometimes, that the intel that I was receiving was suggesting that it was going to be Oregon, but this is still a great class. This is still a great class for Oregon, and I think you got to feel good about the direction of where things are going. So let us know in the live chat how you guys feel on DJ Pickett committing to LSU and where things are at with Oregon. I'm going to get into a couple of these live comments as to try to give Justin a little bit of time to get in here. Andrew said, considering the Ducks already have Finney and Brew, I'm not sure there's much point in trying to flip some other DB like offered. Focus on McNutt and Williams, and if there's a flip, try for McHale. Yeah, I think with Brandon Finney and Dorian Brew already in the fold, and additionally how well you have recruited the cornerback position in recent years, I don't think there's a massive need to try and flip a guy like Naeem Offord from Birmingham, Alabama. I believe it's Parker High School. He's verbally committed to Ohio State right now, but he took an official visit out to Oregon. Auburn is another school that is in the mix there with the 5-star defensive back. So I don't think that Offord is a huge need, but if you're able to get him and get him on campus for a visit, I don't see why you wouldn't push for a guy like that, because lockdown corners are hard to find. They really are. And the more talented corners that you can put on your team, the better. But obviously you have to take into account roster management and all of that comes with it. Jabbar Muhammad and Cam Alexander are only going to be at Oregon for 1 year. So I think you do need to keep the long term in your sights. And I think that's super, super important. Nick P with a comment here. In my view, Pickett knew he had 3 very good options. I believe he simply saw LSU has historically been a very good school, number 1. Number 2, they have a strong history of sending DBs to the league. And then he said, to add one last thing, I think LSU had a little extra cash after losing more to us. There's nothing wrong with that. Every NIL collective has a budget. Yeah, so the Pickett recruitment was an interesting one, because I was talking to Shay Dixon. He runs the Bengal Tiger, the On3 LSU site. And he he told me that he had that gut feeling during the On3 Elite Series in Nashville that Corey Raymond wasn't going to let DJ Pickett get away. And Corey Raymond obviously taking over as the corners coach at LSU. He previously spent time at Florida, and that was the first big recruit, I believe, that he landed since returning to Baton Rouge. And LSU, even though they haven't been maybe the best school in recent years as far as what they've been able to do on the field, they have a lot to live up to, right? With that 2019 team that had Joe Burrow that went to the playoff. They do have that DBU tag, but I don't think they've recently really been DBU. But of course, adding a guy like DJ Pickett is someone that's going to help you get back to that spot without a doubt. So I think that you do have history on your side if you're LSU, but it did seem like it was trending towards Oregon and that they were going to have a good chance to try to get it done. Marcus Stanley, he's a big time fan of the show and he is a frequent listener. Thanks for being here, Marcus. Marcus said, I like Pickett a lot and think he's going to be a really good college football player as a wide receiver. I think he will outgrow the defensive side of the ball by either being too tall or never filling out. Yeah, DJ Pickett is a phenomenal wide receiver talent as well. If you turn on some of his junior season highlights from Zephyr Hills out in the Sunshine State, he is making some serious plays as an offensive weapon for that team. But he's a really good corner too. And I know that as a bigger defensive back, it can be a little bit difficult to be as fluid or as agile as you maybe need to be or want to be compared to a smaller defensive back. But DJ Pickett is a special player, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up playing some wide receiver in college. I think he's that special of an athlete, and you can't rule it out. You definitely can't rule it out. So now that we've talked a little bit about our reactions here from some of the fans, from some of you guys, the viewers, I think that we can get into some of what's next for Oregon as far as the recruiting trail, maybe more specifically cornerback. I got into a little bit of talk on Naeem Offord. He's obviously a big target that you're looking at if you're Oregon. He's the second highest rated corner that they were going after in the 2025 class, I believe, with Dorian Brew now being bumped out of 5-star status. So you don't really need a corner desperately, but there are some names that you want to keep tabs on. If you like following Oregon football recruiting, and Naeem Offord definitely has to be there at the very top. Ohio State, I believe, has the number 1 class in the country, and they are definitely trending up in a big way. Most of their class is already full, it looks like, but that number 1 class is going to be something pretty special. So you kind of just got to stay diligent on Naeem Offord, try to get him out there. Oregon has made a pretty decent push into the state of Alabama in recent years, with Jaquan McRoy being the most notable one. But you've got to keep trying to push into the Southeast if you're Dan Lanning and the Ducks. There's just too many good players out there, and they're becoming, it seems like, more open to coming across the country to play for the Ducks. And another one that I think is interesting is Chuck McDonald. And if you don't know who Chuck McDonald is, he is a really talented cornerback at Mater Dei here in Santa Ana, California. So like 20 minutes or so away from me. He committed to Alabama earlier this summer. I think his final 3 was Alabama, Oregon, and USC. And that was an interesting recruitment to watch unfold, because as I watched it, I never really, and talked to people in Eugene and around the program, I never really got the sense that Oregon was pushing particularly hard for Chuck McDonald. And I think that the casual fan hears that and they're saying, well, how is Oregon not pushing for a guy out of Mater Dei? That's a perennial top 5 program nationally year after year. But just because a guy goes to Mater Dei doesn't mean that he's going to be a bigger priority for this Oregon staff than some other guys. So Oregon didn't really make that big of a push, but now that they miss on DJ Pickett, who honestly would have been a huge luxury addition, like it's not like missing on a guy like DJ Pickett, who is also in the top 5 nationally, is going to break this class. Like, you still have some really good pieces in place, and you're still in the position to potentially add some other guys down the line. So I wonder if Oregon doesn't maybe try to circle back with Chuck McDonald now that he is committed to Alabama, and Oregon's trying to figure out where things are kind of going at corner. And I don't know. I think I'm thinking about how Oregon has had some misses in this class, and then more recently how we've seen them kind of approach things, because I know QB11 talked about it on his show, and he kind of said that he doesn't necessarily think that Oregon's going to just go down the board in terms of their targets. I don't think it's a I don't think it's a huge deal that Oregon, missed on DJ Pickett and now they're just going to try to panic and make something happen. I think they're going to be all right. Like I said, they're taking a quality over quantity approach in this 2025 class, which I believe still ranks inside the top 5 nationally, but Chuck McDonald is a big one to watch. I'm kind of just shuffling through some other names. I got my guy KB here in the chat. Yo yo yo, what a do flight crew. And just wanted to make sure I gave him a shout out while we were on here. Yeah, let's get into a little bit more of what I was talking about with just overall missing on DJ Pickett. I don't think it's obviously not the news you wanted if you were an Oregon fan, but to even be in the conversation and to be a realistic option. I mean, Justin and I both had our predictions in for Oregon, and then Steve Wiltfong put his prediction in, and a lot of the other national analysts. I think I saw Sam Spiegelman put his pick in, Tom Loy over at 247. He put his pick in for Oregon. So Oregon had really been trending as the favorite, of course, heading into this decision. And I think it makes sense that LSU was able to pull this off because, like I was talking about, it seemed like everyone was just talking about Oregon and Miami. So what did that allow LSU to do? It kind of allowed them to fly under the radar a little bit, which sounds weird to say, even though they were into the one of the top 3 teams, but they were able to kind of go under the radar and work behind the scenes to make this one happen. And I mean, I've got some thoughts on Brian Kelly and what he's been able to do in the in the recruiting scene, and so that weird dancing video, and him saying the whole "me and my family," even though he isn't from the South at all. Um, but LSU is still a recruiting power. They really are, and they have the resources to make it happen. I think with his recent comments on NIL and basically talking about how LSU is not willing to spend in the portal, I thought that was interesting. Um, all that to say, they are putting a big emphasis on recruiting the high school ranks. So that was just kind of some more thoughts that I wanted to get into there about, just the fact that Oregon missed on DJ Pickett. It doesn't mean that everything is, falling apart by any means. Let's see some other names that I wanted to get into as far as corners to keep an eye on here in the 2025 class moving forward for Oregon. Another one has to be Adonis Curry out of Lancaster, California, Quartz Hill High School. He's also committed to Texas A&M, as is Noah McHale, another big Oregon target here in the 2025 recruiting class. And that was an interesting commitment because I know I was told that Oregon was pushing for Adonis Curry, but that commitment to Texas A&M kind of came out of nowhere. And the interesting thing with Texas A&M, I think that they've really, under Mike Elko, solidified themselves as, at the very least, a top contender for California talent. And we've seen some of the top players like McHale and Curry, and then Hassan Longstreet at Corona Centennial. He's a really talented quarterback that put on a show at the Elite 11 finals last month here in the Southern California area. They're all heading to College Station as of right now. And I think that you try to get a guy like McHale, try to get a guy like Adonis Curry back on campus for a visit this season. And then maybe you can play that long game and get a flip. I think if I had to choose, if I'm Oregon and I could only flip one guy in this class, I'd probably say Noah McHale. Just since we're talking about some of the other names to watch, I was talking about Adonis Curry, and now that kind of led me into Noah McHale. That was another guy that I really thought was going to be heading to Oregon, but Texas A&M got that last official visit, and they were able to make it happen. But you can bet that Oregon's not gonna let up, and they're going to stay involved until the very end, until the pen meets paper. And Alan here has a great point. He says these are still just verbal commitments. You never know what will happen when signing day comes. in December, because things get crazy in those final hours. So I think even with this news this week, you can still try to go for some flips. I'm not gonna tell you that Oregon's gonna flip everybody. That would just be, I think, short-sighted and not very smart to say, but they're gonna do what they can to try to stay in the mix with a lot of these top guys. And what was the other point that I was gonna get to? I think there might have been one more name that I wanted to mention. As far as cornerbacks go, and that's Blake Woodby. Blake Woodby out of Baltimore, Maryland, St. Francis Academy. He is a pretty talented corner that has Oregon in his final schools, and he was previously committed to Ohio State at one point earlier on in the season, in the cycle, I should say. He took an official visit out to Maryland in June, and he has Oregon in his top schools. I think it is Auburn, Maryland, and Oregon, but he doesn't have a commitment date, which makes this a little bit of an interesting recruitment to follow, because Oregon's done well at St. Francis Academy in recent years, right? You got Ife Obadegwu, who was a 2024 Under Armour All-American cornerback out of St. Francis in the Baltimore area. He's signed with the Ducks and is I don't know if he's in Eugene yet, but he's set to join the team for the 2024 season and for fall camp. So Oregon is growing that pipeline to the DMV area, which has some tremendous talent that they're starting to tap into. And then you also have Dejon Riggs out of St. John's in the DC area. So we're going to see if they can continue growing that pipeline moving forward. We got J-Hop here in the chat after a lot of anticipation. Just been talking about a lot of the cornerback stuff that's going on with Oregon. Just finished kind of getting through some of those names. But how you doing, J-Hop?
I'm good. I apologize for that. Literally, I'm sitting here. I'm ready to go. I got my computer up, 10:58, 10:59. Get a notification on my phone that there's somebody at my front door from my Ring. And of course, it's the air conditioning guy. It's supposed to be 105 here today. So I'm like, I better go get that done. So super nice guy. He just, I was helping him go back and forth because it was upstairs. And so I apologize. It was worst case scenario, but also much needed.
Yeah, you got to take care of things when the AC goes out there in the extreme temperatures. I'm heading up to Spokane on Saturday, and it's supposed to be in the 105 neighborhood. So I'll be experiencing a little bit of what you're experiencing before too long. But Justin, I wanted to get your thoughts here. I'm not sure what your timing factor is, if that's changed at all, but since you're here, I wanted to get some of your thoughts on yesterday's news. Because I also wanted to say, you said, hey, there was a shout out to the ScoopDuck readers about how everyone's kind of handled the news maybe a bit better than you expected. So just wanted to throw that one your way.
Yeah. You know what I think? Two parts to that. First off, I guess I'll start here. I think it's a credit to this coaching staff and the way they've recruited so far, because let's just be fair, they've out-recruited expectations already, right? And that includes missing on a DJ Pickett, and that includes Noah McHale going to Texas A&M, and maybe Houston Longstreet, some of these guys that they weren't able to close on. And I think the other part of that is just that folks like myself and the people that read recruiting stuff every day really firmly believe that Dan Lanning has a plan, right? It's not like, oh man, Oregon missed on DJ Pickett, now they're screwed. All of a sudden, you and I or whatever, we're writing a story or putting together a story. It's like, oh crap, there's still like a couple 5 stars left, on the list, some high 4 stars that Oregon's probably at no worse than the top 3-4. So, I think that it's a credit to Coach Lanning in the way that they've attacked recruiting, the way they've been successful, and the way that when they're not successful, folks are confident that they have, I guess we can call it a backup plan, if you will, but it's really unfair to call Naeem Offord a backup plan because that's a complete disservice to him. So, I think those are the things. And it just feels overall like maybe there's an appreciation from the fan base for, those two things, and recruiting being where it's at and just kind of getting to understand that level of success. So I think those are all great things. of course. And I truly was, I don't know about you, but I was truly like just surprised at how minimal the meltdown was. Maybe it helped that I was kind of able to tip the hand just before that, hey guys, it's looking LSU. And I know it was kind of a surprise up until that point, but it definitely helps take some of the sting out of it versus him just throwing on an LSU hat when everybody's got all Oregon picks and you're blindsided. It's really fun for LSU fans, not so much fun for Oregon fans in that case.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, and it feels like you just gotta. This is how recruiting goes. Like I feel like Josh Pate was saying it not too long ago. He was saying recruiting is not for the faint of heart, and I feel like it's becoming less and less predictable at times, which means you got to get better and better sources, which puts more pressure on us. But you and I both had our picks there, and then it wasn't just us that were saying Oregon was the leader. Steve Wiltfong put his pick in. I was talking earlier on the show. I think it was Sam Spiegelman put his pick in. Tom Loy over at 247 and Rivals. So it really did look like it was going to be Oregon. And I guess this is kind of just the Ducks being on the opposite end of the DeCorian Moore recruitment, because that was looking like Texas, and then it became Oregon. Neither of us had picks in there, I don't think. So you win some, you lose some. Things are crazy in the NIL era. I'm not saying that Oregon missed on Pickett because of NIL. I think one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was just, maybe it doesn't have to be on today's show, but just about how if people think that Oregon is only getting these recruits because of NIL, I think it's pretty short-sighted and a disservice to what they've been able to do on the field, which is really what matters most. But I already talked to Donis Curry, Naeem Offord, Blake Woodby as well. I feel like those are most of the big names to watch for as far as Oregon and cornerback recruiting goes. I don't know if you're hearing anything in particular on Offord, but it seems like Oregon's being mentioned pretty heavily along with Auburn as well there.
Yeah, and you've got to think, I mean, Oregon's done this in the past, so you've got to believe that to be the case here. But, missing on a guy like DJ Pickett, Oregon already had themselves in a great spot for Naeem Offord. I'm not sure that financially and Oregon would have been able to get both, right? That's a big look. NIL is part of it. You're having to make an investment into both of them. It's not like Oregon's getting them for free. I just don't think Oregon's out there buying him. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to pay $5 million for DJ Pickett, and the other top offers 1.5 million. And I'm just using numbers. These are examples, but so you get my point. So I think you see like, okay, I don't think that the budget probably would have allowed for Offord and Pickett. So I think you're going to probably see Oregon divert maybe more attention there or expect to be able to, match whatever the rate is for Offord. And again, we have to talk NIL. It's a part of this. If you're going to be, nobody's getting DeCorian Moore for free. Nobody's getting DJ Pickett for free. It's not happening. You've got to be competitive. That's the word I always want to stick to, is being competitive in NIL. And, that's the thing that's changed the game, right? You just mentioned a moment ago, it's getting harder to predict some of these guys. It's getting harder to kind of know leading up to, the commitment, really who leads or whatnot. And I'll be honest, that's like 1,000% related to NIL. Most of these guys have an NIL agent now, and basically his job is to shop his client. Like, that's his job. He doesn't care where DJ Pickett wants to go. He just wants to get DJ Pickett the best offer he can and then let him decide, right? Maybe he does take the most money, or maybe he says, no, this offer's pretty competitive. Yeah, this one's a little bit more, but I like this coach better. I like the direction of this program better. I'm going to go here. And I think we heard that before. We heard that Nick Saban got the Bama discount before. I don't think Alabama was necessarily always the top NIL offer in a lot of the guys they signed under Nick Saban in the NIL era. They got the Saban discount because you knew, hey, look, they're competitive enough from an NIL standpoint, and I'm going to go be developed. I'm going to compete for national championships. Yeah, I'm going to give them the Bama discount. So I don't know if Oregon's getting the Oregon discount per se yet. But again, I also don't think that they're in a position where like, for instance, let's just use Nico Iamaleava, for example, with Tennessee. Like, it feels pretty clear to me that they bought him. I'm not bitter about it, but it really didn't make any sense other than them probably being the most lucrative NIL offer when he signed in that class. That's fine. I'm not like, hey, good for them. Good for playing the game. But I think you see some of these instances. Jaden Rashada seems like a perfect example if we want to get technical there. So yeah, I guess I think Oregon maybe is getting a little bit of a discount just because I think you've got a great fan base, you've got a great university. Their equipment state of the art, their facilities are state of the art. Dan Lanning is young and hungry. It's a great team. It's a great roster. There's lots in Oregon's favor that I don't think Oregon has to just buy recruits. They have to be competitive in the NIL front, but I think there's a lot of other things people are dismissing rather easily.
For sure. No, it's definitely a complicated equation, and it's not just all about NIL. Let's get into a little bit of what's next, Justin, if that works for you. I don't know what your timing front is like because I feel like you had to be gone at this point. So
nope, I'm good. I'm good. My 12 o'clock got moved because it became an 11 o'clock, so now I'm good.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, two big names that we're really keeping an eye on now moving forward for Dan Lanning and the Ducks here on the recruiting trail. 5-star Cleveland, Ohio, Shaker Heights safety Trey McNutt is set to announce his college decision on Friday, July 19th. I think he said 6 p.m. Eastern, which would be 3 p.m. our time here on the West Coast. So he's the next guy that you got to watch if you're an Oregon fan. He's set to make his commitment from a top group that consists of Oregon, Ohio State, Texas A&M, I want to say Florida, and USC. But that's just going off the top of my head. You and I both have our picks in favor of the Ducks. I think Steve Wiltfong has his pick in as well. At the risk of getting burned again, like what happened yesterday. I mean, you never know what can happen in the final 24 hours or so. But from what I think, I'm speaking for both of us, from what we're hearing, it looks like all signs are pointing to Oregon for Trey McNutt. And that's a guy, granted, I think Oregon's been in the lead for a decent amount of time now compared to DJ Pickett.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, this is a byproduct of NIL and NIL agents and whatnot. The new game in recruiting is basically laying in the weeds till that 11th hour. And, as LSU did that yesterday, they did a great job doing that, really. But let's credit Oregon because they've done that a lot. I mean, they almost perfected that craft before anybody else. This one, however, doesn't feel like that. It feels like, even when everybody was saying, DJ Pickett to Oregon and we had our picks in, and then you see some other picks behind it, which gives you some confidence. I was still like, man, this is still going to be a really tough one. Trey McNutt doesn't feel like that. It definitely feels like, a lot of the other schools have waved the white flag, if you will. It feels like he's Oregon's to lose. That's a dangerous feeling still, because you and I are both sitting here, getting burned a little bit yesterday with Pickett. And it's like, okay, do we have our Homer glasses on? But it doesn't feel that way. And, again, like you said, there's picks from guys outside the Oregon market, much stronger than the picks were for Pickett. I mean, if we're looking back, Wiltfong put in a 30% prediction on Pickett, which is kind of barely making a pick, if you will. I'm saying the word pick a lot, but, I'm not really trying to pick on him, but, 30% is not much of a prediction. So, and that's probably why he made it at 30. McNutt, I think we're both up around 60 or 70%. I think Wiltfong's around the same. And it's just felt like he's been Oregon's to lose for quite some time. I know he's been in the live stream of several of the guys that, have been Oregon targets, whether it's Pickett or DK Moore or whatever. So yeah, seems to be trending the right way. I guess, hopefully I don't get intel at 2:00 tomorrow suggesting otherwise. I think A&M was the biggest threat here. Honestly, I think Ohio State gave up a while back. I think Texas A&M has been the biggest threat here, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of smoke coming out of that side right now. So either they're doing a fantastic job keeping it under wraps, or this is legitimately in favor of Oregon. And by the way, I'm glad he's doing it at 3, because on Fridays I start drinking at 4. So that works well for me.
You can watch Trey McNutt's commitment at about 3 p.m. Pacific, like we said, live on his Instagram at tr8mcnut_. But he will also be announcing on the On3 Recruits YouTube channel. I believe that is with Josh Newberg. So That's where you can watch tomorrow's big announcement. Want to take a second to give a quick shout out to our guy Ruben over at Ranchito Grill in Springfield. Not sure what your dinner plans are, but head on over to Ranchito over at 1537 Mohawk Boulevard. You got to try their homemade tortillas. They got great food, a great environment, and they will take care of you. Say what's up to my guy Ruben and let him know that Max Torres sent you. We got a lot of folks here in the live stream. Thank you guys so much for showing up and commenting and talking with other Duck fans. This is exactly why we do what we do. We want to build this community of Oregon football because Justin and I clearly cannot get enough of it. That's why we do it all day, every day. Got a cool comment here from Tahoe Sam 707. He said, shout out to you guys, Max and J-Hop, for all the great content recruiting related. Golden age of Oregon football is upon us. Certainly feels that way, Justin.
Well, I would assume that Tahoe Sam is standing for Lake Tahoe, and I will be there in about 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks in Tahoe. So if you Tahoe Sam, reach out, DM, email, whatever, and we'll connect for a beer. But yes, truly the golden age of Oregon football upon us right now. I know I was late to the party here, but me jumping on and basically saying, hey, look, Oregon missed out on some guys, but, nobody blew up my message board, which I'm appreciative for, I think really speaks to that. And I don't know I think I speak for both of us, but I don't think I've ever written so many articles that lead with 5-star such and such visiting Oregon, 5-star such and such commits to Oregon, 5-star such and such trending to Oregon. Like, I've never written that title so much in my life, and I'm truly enjoying it.
It's very fun. It's very fun. And with Oregon moving to the Big Ten, I guess selfishly, with me moving over to On3, it really felt like the perfect time for all of that. Justin, we got one more big recruit that I want to talk about. Rather, I'm going to try sharing my screen here. This is a little bit different because I don't have my monitor set up in the new spot just yet. But Jonah Williams, 5-star ball, Galveston, Texas safety, certainly had a lot of fans' attention because he tweeted over or posted over on X following Oregon's miss on DJ Pickett, saying, quote, I have it here on the screen, unlimited NIL, huh? Which I thought was very, very interesting because that, as we have been talking about, has been a huge talking point around Oregon football recruiting, that they're just buying all these recruits and that they have unlimited NIL, which we know is not the case. But this comment, along with one more post that he immediately followed that up with, I think has quite a few fans buzzing right now because you and I both have our picks in for Oregon, and this has been a fun one to follow.
This has been a very, very bright spot, right? I mean, I think we're feeling spoiled here, right? Because we're talking about Oregon in a great spot for Trey McNutt committing tomorrow. And now here we are once again talking about a 5-star that, DJ Pickett committed to LSU. Obviously Jonah Williams was paying attention to that commitment because, like you said, these were immediately following that news, following that decision. And I didn't see him posting anything about Texas A&M. You know what I mean? There wasn't like tweets about their pictures of him visiting or anything. Those were obviously very directed at Oregon. And like I said, with our picks in, I feel good about our picks right now. I wouldn't put it in the same classification maybe as the confidence of Trey McNutt, but I think I would put it in a little stronger classification than how I felt about DJ Pickett. Yes, I made a pick. Yes, I felt like Oregon was the team to beat, but I always was like cautioning, like, man, this thing's not done yet. I'm not saying like, I never once said, hey, this kid's definitely committing to Oregon. It was always like, still feeling good, but you never know. And again, I think with Jonah Williams, a little more confidence there, but gotta love that. I love seeing it. So I'm sure the Duck fans love seeing it as well.
Yeah, and to your point about Pickett and like not feeling super, super confident, especially on the day of, like I was texting one of my buddies and I obviously had predictions in on Pickett, Trey McNutt, and Jonah Williams. And I said, Pickett is the guy I'm the least confident in out of all three of those. And he was like, well, why is that? I said, well, he's from Florida. You're looking at the schools that they're going against. distance isn't on their side, but with Jonah Williams in Texas, I think it's a lot more reasonable. And this, I think, makes me feel better a little bit better about my pick. Not that I'm putting a whole lot of stock into it. I think the thing with Jonah Williams that is really the ultimate wild card is we don't even know if this guy's going to go to college, Justin. He might head to the MLB. So I think that's kind of the wild card in this whole recruitment. But based on kind of recent developments in the last month or so, it does feel like if he does end up going the college route, Oregon has the best chance to land him as of right now. But Texas A&M is obviously a school you can't overlook, as Oregon fans have learned this cycle, especially for an in-state guy. But I don't know. He doesn't have a decision date set, but it figures that a lot of these top high-profile guys, DJ Pickett's a perfect example, want to make their commitment before their senior season starts. DJ Pickett was supposed to come off the board in October, and then he moved it all the way up to yesterday. So no decision date for Jonah, but maybe this is one that kind of hits like Dorian Brew just out of nowhere.
Yeah, it could be a surprise. One thing, because I overlooked it too, and I've said the same thing as you, and reminded me this last week. If wherever Jonah Williams commits to, right, Oregon, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, whatever school he picks, assuming that he's an early enrollee or a mid-year enrollee, so if he'll graduate December, January, whatever, and go to the school of his choosing, that seems likely to happen. And again, that's whatever school. He would be able to participate in the spring football camp of that school, Oregon, whoever, because the MLB draft would be after that. It just happened this past week, whatever. So that puts the timeline at, mid-July for the draft. He's going to be at school XYZ, whatever, for about 6 months roughly before the MLB draft, before he knows where he's going. So my point to that is you just kind of wonder how that will factor in with things, right? Will he get to that school and decide, hey, I really enjoy football. I want to do the college life. I want to play both sports for a year or two, because the MLB draft's not going anywhere. It'll be there. So you just wonder, like, it will be an interesting thing to track, because this kid legitimately could commit to Oregon, arrive in January, go through spring ball, and then take off 2 months later because he got drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers or something. You never know. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, so we have to see what happens there, but I think those are some of the biggest names to keep an eye on for Oregon moving forward. Juan Gaston, the offensive lineman out of Atlanta, is another big guy to watch at Westlake High School. He's set to announce his commitment on August 2nd. Seems like it might be a Georgia versus Oregon battle there, but I think you also have Tennessee and South Carolina in the mix, if memory serves. But maybe as we start to wind it down here a bit, Justin, I think we're at an interesting point where Oregon has, I want to say, a majority of their class in the fold right now, but you're still in the mix with some of these five-star guys. I think you probably, assuming you can get McNutt and Williams, you're looking pretty good at the secondary, and then you're really just trying to maybe grab another offensive lineman or two and figure out what's going on at linebacker. So with Saturday Night Live scheduled for later this month, I think that Oregon's going to be moving some of their focus to the 2026 class, because that early visitor list that you posted is filled with some serious talent in the 26 class. Yeah,
that's paramount. And for this reason, that's a really, really, I mean, recruiting just keeps moving up. The timeline, I mean, look at the 2026 quarterbacks, and more than half of the top 20 guys are already off the board, right? Like, and those dominoes are already lining up. Ryder Lyons, one of the top quarterbacks of 2026, is already talking decision timeline. You know what I mean? And he doesn't have a date set, but he's taking a couple visits, and you could see him make a commitment maybe at the end of summer, maybe early fall, mid-fall. And that's a top guy for Oregon, at least at quarterback. So, again, that just speaks to how paramount it is to get these guys on campus for SNL, because you can evaluate them. You can spend some time with them, show them how you coach, show them your style. And then, as we both know, there's, we got to start writing about 26 guys here way sooner than we ever have. And that's just the nature of the beast, right? I mean, that's the way this works. And the reason that SNL is paramount, or the reason that the early 2026 recruiting is paramount, because if you think about it right now, we're talking about the 2025 class, and it's mid-July, and a really good portion of those top guys, regardless of position, are committed, right? I mean, or they're already working from a top 2, 3, or 4. Their recruitments are winding down. So your opportunities for the 2025 class to bring them on your campus during season for games, which we know are very special. Bringing recruits to Autzen Stadium for a big game has always been a feather in the cap for the coaching staff. Doesn't matter if it was Mario or if it's Lanning or if it was Chip Kelly. You get those kids to experience a game in Autzen and they leave going, wow, this place is special, right? Well, my point to that is you're not going to get a lot of 2025s that aren't committed on your campus for that, because they're all committed to wherever they're going. So now an event like SNL and the other events through the summer, you're setting yourself up to get these guys on campus for a game, the 2026s, that is, so they can see a game this fall at Autzen Stadium, because chances are a good portion of those young men are already going to be committed by your season next year, and you won't have that opportunity. So whether it's a quarterback, whether it's a safety, whether it's a linebacker in the 26 class, Dan Lanning and Marshall Malco know right now that they've got to get these guys lined up so that they can bring them out for the Ohio State game or, the Washington game or whatever, so that they can experience that. Because, yeah, you get them out for a spring game, and a spring game's good. It's not the same. We both know it's not the same. It's not even close to the same. It's great, but it's still not the same. So I think that's why 26 is so important, probably why I'm stressing it. You and I talked the other day about gearing up on calling some of these 2026 guys because, as you said, this 25 class is rounded out. I mean, if you add – it doesn't even – regardless of name, you add 2 or 3 more commits to the list, all of a sudden you're bumping 20 commits for Oregon, right around 20, 19, 20, whatever the number is. And there's not a lot of room. There's not going to be a lot of names. I'll say this. I'll throw it out there. I don't think we've heard the last of DJ Pickett. I mean, there's a few guys that I think you could say that about. That's one of those guys where if you're Oregon, if you're Chris Hampton, if you're Wadood, if you're Antonio Parks, you're working like hell to get them to come back on campus this fall for a game. I'm not saying he'll flip, but let's face it, the flipping is more prevalent now in recruiting with these top guys. And the biggest reason for that is NIL. So we'll see. Like, again, kudos to LSU for getting Pickett, and I'm not saying he's going to flip. I'm just not saying I don't think we've heard. I'm saying we just haven't heard the last of him yet.
And you could say that for a handful of guys, right? Pickett, I think McHale is another one as well. Just to stay on LSU, Keelan Moses, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back out for a game. I think that's probably the plan, matter of fact. But 2026, to kind of maybe wrap up the show here, I think that the QBs are flying off the board. So many QB dominoes have already fallen. And Ryder Lyons, I think, is right up there for Will Stein and the Ducks this upcoming recruiting cycle, I should say. But I think he's taking a mission trip. So we'll see how that kind of factors into things. And then Hassan Longstreet is another one to watch if we're just looking at more 25 names to keep an eye on moving forward. But recruiting never stops, and we're seeing exactly why it's so important to recruit not only the current cycle, but a cycle or maybe even 2 cycles down the road. I mean, it's weird to say that you can never start too early. I think you can start too early. I mean, 8th grade is around the earliest that it gets started, because if you're only finding out about a guy, I've learned being out here on the trail in SoCal, if you're only finding out about a guy sophomore, junior year, you are late to the game. And I think you definitely want to try to build those connections, build those relationships with the guys when they're a little bit on the younger side before they blow up and everybody's hounding them for interviews. So it's been kind of fun. I've been able to do that for a couple of these 2026 guys that I've gotten to know when they were a little bit more under the radar. So just peeling back the curtain a little bit there.
Well, if I had a better memory, because I don't, it would be really interesting to look at how many of the 2025 commits that Oregon has visited last season. Like, how many of them were on campus at some point, from September to February. You know what I mean? And I think if you look at the list, if you look at the names, I wouldn't be, and again, we're talking about the commit list. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 75, 80% took at least one visit to Oregon somewhere in the fall last year. It's big. I don't think, and again, part of your and my job here is education, right? We need to educate people on, hey, J-Hop Max, why are you writing about all these 2026s? Well, here's why. Because, this is a really key part of recruiting for them. And if Oregon isn't successful here, we're looking at next year's class in a totally different light. And, I think that's been why I've been banging on the drum on NIL so much. I think, I think DJ Pickett's a perfect example, right? Has Steve Wiltfong lost all his sources because he incorrectly picked DJ Pickett? No, that's a stupid statement. Like it's a dumb statement. Nobody's lost their sources. NIL has just changed recruiting. And I don't mean the money. I don't mean the money. I mean, these kids are self-reporting their offers, their commitments and things more than they ever have. And the reason they're self-reporting it is because they want to grow their social media presence. They want to grow their social media presence because that's more money for them, right? It's branding. I get it. I understand the game. It's just important for us to educate fans. And that's why I've been preaching about the NIL agents. They've changed the recruiting game. Like they literally hold all the power right now because they are the one hub that recruiting guys like us or Steve Wiltfong, analysts, if whatever you want to call them, and coaches all go to that hub for information, right? They're all going to DJ Pickett's NIL agent for, hey, who leads? What's the offer? Where are we going? That guy basically is pulling all the strings of who he wants to say leads. And there's very few people that, have better intel than that person. And so it doesn't make them a bad source. It just makes it so that whatever that person tells you, you've got to do your best to try and double and triple check it with your sources, maybe at that school or maybe, that young man's trainer or his parents or somebody close to him, so that you can try and maybe pull together the picture the best you can. That's what we're doing. That's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. That's what Steve Wiltfong's doing. It used to be you could pretty much like maybe ask a coach on staff or ask a coach that trains these recruits, and you'd get a really good feel for where they're going. It's not the game. It's not the game anymore. And hell, let's just play along and enjoy the ride.
It's a crazy, crazy game when it comes to recruiting, and it's no perfect science, but a lot of good stuff here today, Justin. I think we're going to wind down for today's episode. If you guys want to find more of Justin, you can follow him on Twitter/X at JHopkinsSD. If you want to find more of me, you can follow me on all social media platforms at mtorresports. Come and see us at ScoopDuck.com. Give us a try for just $1. No better time with football season just about a month away. If you're talking college, even sooner if you're looking at high school, which is right up my alley down here in Southern California. And then do me a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel and share the show, share the Duck Dish podcast with your friends, with your family, and with other Duck fans. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of the Duck Dish podcast.